Hello, everyone, and welcome to Some Like It Classic. I'm your host, Tammy Gouveia. Behind me is a beautiful wall of dollhouses that has been curated by artist and interior designer Amy Kay. Now, Amy and I met happenstance, and when I discovered that she has a passion for dollhouses, miniatures, and nostalgia, I thought, this is going to make for a really good story. And even though it's about a lot of small things, the story has a really big heart. Amy, it's so good to see you.
Thank you, Tammy. It's good to see you too.
Thank you for being on Some Like It Classic. Like I said, when we met, it was really one of those synchronistic moments.
It was.
Because I think it started, I don't know if it started with the Chevy, the 48 Chevy.
It did. I had said to my husband, I would love to get photographs of where we were at breakfast, which is a cute little street cafe, with my miniatures. And if I could have a car like that one in it, that would be awesome. And then you guys came out and sat down, and you sat down in front of the car, and I didn't realize it was yours, but we got talking and ended up being your car. And then one thing led to another, and it was kismet. Yeah.
Your love for dollhouses.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when you mentioned that, and I don't even know how we got on the subject. Maybe we were saying goodbye, and you said, here's my contact info.
Yes.
And was that it?
Yes.
At my miniature.
Yeah.
Collecting the woman.
Yes.
And that's how we found out about your passion.
Yeah.
About it. I can't wait to know what's great.
It started with a dollhouse like this one, just like this one. And I'd like to think in my mind that maybe I found the one I actually lost when I was a kid. But I was gifted a dollhouse just like this when I was 6 years old. It was an elderly friend of my mom's we used to go visit, and her kids were grown, and that had been her children's dollhouse. And I felt like I was just in heaven every time I go to her house because I got to play with this dollhouse, and I had everything. I had forks and knives, and I had never seen anything quite like it. And I was already obsessed with designing rooms. I didn't realize as a kid, all my pictures that I drew were dollhouse-like. There was no front of the house. It was just the rooms inside, or it was looking down on the rooms and all the furniture arranged. And so when I played with this house, I was just kind of reenacting the drawings I had been doing already my whole life. And I fell in love with it. She gave it to me when she decided to downsize her home. And when I was around 12, we had moved a couple of times because every time my mom had a child, we moved. I'm the oldest of 6. And it ended up in the garage. And I loved it still, but my mom thought I had outgrown it, and she sold it in a garage sale without me knowing. And it was one of the saddest moments of my childhood. I was really distraught that she had let it go. And I forgave her, but I never stopped missing the house, So many, many years later, I decided after I had cancer, I had breast cancer in 2022. I had treatment in 2023. And it was around that time that I started realizing, I want to start doing something again for myself. And we were on vacation, and I came across a metal dollhouse with furniture in it that I remembered having as a kid, some of the same pieces. It wasn't this dollhouse. It was actually the one above you up there. But
is this a metal?
It's a metal.
It's a metal. Are they traditionally made of metal?
And like all through the 50s and 60s and part of the 70s, a lot of the dollhouses were lithographed, printed dollhouses. And so they were stamped, lithographed, stamped, cut, and then they were sent out, and you would assemble them yourself. You'd bend it into shape and things, and you'd assemble it yourself. And then the furniture that went with them was all molded plastic. Some of it, depending on the size of the house, because there's some different scales. There's some that are smaller than this. This is 1/16 scale, known as 1/16. Or 3/4 scale, and then there's also a half scale. It goes down to 1/24 scale, which is smaller. That they were very popular at the time. They were inexpensive, and so they were produced, pretty much through the 70s. There's a couple. This one I think was the only one I'm not sure, but I think in the 80s.
Okay.
This was when this one was done. But it was what kids my mom's age played with more than me, because I was born in the late 60s. So by the time I was a kid or growing up, the 1/12 scale, which this one is, the larger scale, became more popular. And these were phased out completely, and they stopped manufacturing them. So they ended up in garages and, attics, and where, not even antique stores, because they weren't antiques yet, So the ones that I have here are really good representations of the houses at that time. Most of them are in pretty great shape, but they rust, they bend, they get dented, the paint and things starts chipping. So these things are pretty fragile, and I love kind of preserving them, and my collecting keeps them in really good condition for the next generation. But these are really time capsules, the way the lithographs are created, the artwork, this is all popular design at the time, like the cutting edge popular designs at the time. So I grew up with that. And it affected my design choices as a designer when I grew up, but I didn't even realize it.
Well, that's what's so fascinating. How you speak about your passion for this type of thing as a child.
Yeah.
If you have to ask, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Was that in your family? Was there, dollhouses and in design, or?
My mom was good at putting rooms together. Like, she has a really good sense of design.
Yeah.
But she's not an interior designer. When I grew up, I didn't know interior designers were a job. Like, that was a job you could have, an interior designer. I had no idea. I'd see these magazines with all these gorgeous, beautiful rooms, and I didn't realize that somebody maybe was hired to do that room. I thought that you just had great taste, or you didn't, or that, everybody had different tastes. And so when I came out to California, after I had my daughter, I ended up happenstance actually becoming an interior designer, because my house was on a short homes, and it really stood out because there's a lot of rich colors, and I'm very inspired by a lot of the designs that I grew up with the furniture, not just the lithographs, but even the furniture, the styles. They're older styles from the 40s and the 30s, 40s, 50s. And then they get into the mid-century modern styles too. And because I grew up watching older shows on TV, Andy Griffith's show, Nancy Fever, my favorite, I Love Lucy, I grew up seeing that kind of furniture too. Like, that was normal and beautiful, and that's how things should look, So I kind of grew up in a time capsule in a way between my toys and the types of shows that I really generally watched a lot on TV. It definitely had an impact on how I thought rooms should look and what pretty was.
But, we're so simpatico, because I grew up, my parents were older when they had me, and they're from the Sinatra and, Dean Martin era, Lily Prima. So when it came to the music in my life, that's what I grew up listening to. So to me, that was modern contemporary music. And as you get older, it's like, everyone was raised a whole lot different than I was.
Right.
But you carry that with you for the rest of your life. And what was it about I Love Lucy? Those kinds of shows, because you're either a classic Hollywood aficionado and you have that love for it, or you don't.
Right.
There's just something that clicks inside you.
Absolutely. I like fancy things. I consider myself a maximalist. I am a maximalist at heart. When I was a little kid and I was cleaning my room, I did like to keep my room neat, actually. But all my stuff had to be showing. Like, my dolls all had to be showing. Like, I wanted people to see and enjoy my objects to art, or the things that I loved, or the things that I was already collecting as a kid. So I thought, people want to enjoy my collection. People want to see it. And so more is better, as there's more things to look at. So, and part of that is also what I grew up with, because when you look inside the lithographs in these houses, they're very colorful and there's lots of artwork and there's wallpaper and there's, wainscoting and there's all different types of floors and rugs. So I got so used to those types of images, especially with the shows I was watching on TV. There is a glamour to them.
Yes.
There's a fanciness to them. And there's also an elegance.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I grew up seeing those images. And even though I Love Lucy was a comedy, I mean, she was beautiful and she dressed impeccably. Like, oh, I wish I could dress like Lucy did in I Love Lucy. And I loved the furniture too. And it changed with the times. She would get new furniture as time progressed.
And it's part of the storyline.
It was.
Often.
Yes. Yes. And for me, like, that was like, yeah, they're redecorating. I was actually excited as a kid. Like, what's going to really get? So I think, I was just very much, like I said, I grew up seeing those images and that time in Hollywood and the kind of glamour that went with it. And I was definitely attracted to that. I even though I can appreciate minimalism, I really can. And I have even worked with clients who like a minimalistic look, and I can do that. That's not where I feel happy. That's not where my joy is. My joy is really having my things showcased around me, that I can just look around and enjoy them when I want. And when people come over, they actually do like looking around. My daughter calls our house kind of a museum. And it is. I didn't expect it to be a doll museum or a dollhouse museum, but that's what it's kind of turned into.
And you also mentioned that the Brady Bunch was an inspiration for you.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, I think the Brady Bunch, I resonated with me because they had a large family, and I came from a large family. So I really, and it wasn't quite 3 boys and 3 girls in my family, but there was a lot of the same energy, and the parents, it was a very Gen X parenting, really. Even though mom was home and Alice was there, those kids were off doing their own thing, just like we were growing up. And nobody really knew exactly where they were at any given time. That one was driving the kids around, and they were doing all these fun things. And even though the design, the sets of that time didn't really resonate with me, I definitely, it helped me understand that time period. And, as a designer now, I can certainly, I know there's a lot of popularity with that time period and those colors and things. And I, fortunately, because I grew up watching TV a lot, those references resonate with me, and I can tell what people want when they ask for something like that. So
30s, 40s, 50s in regards to the dollhouses. Do you have some from that era?
I do.
And do you have a particular era that this is it?
I think the 50s. 50s. And the thing is that the 40s made the 40s furniture, and then the 50s houses.
And so what is about the 40s furniture in it?
It is a little bit more elegant and a little less square.
You're fancy pants.
Yeah, I like curves. I do. I like different shapes, and furniture in the 50s did start to get a little bit more square, boxier looking, streamlined. So, and it was a progression, but you can see definitely the difference between furniture in the 40s and the 50s as it progresses. So, but the houses from the 40s, there's no lot of lithograph. This one right behind you might be like from the 40s. As much as I've been collecting too fast, so I can't remember exactly. I'm just going with I do.
Get your son again.
To get flashcards. So, but I do have the one behind me here is a rich dollhouse. Now it's not a metal dollhouse, but it is a lithograph. So these were painted with the same kind of technique that the metal ones were, if they were done on a wood, composite wood. And they're not quite as decorative inside. They're much plainer inside. So based on that, the 50s is when things got really fancy and there was a lot of color. in the dollhouses. And then even as it got through the 60s, the colors changed and they were more oranges and greens and things like that. But I prefer the bright blues and reds and pinks and yellow, yellow kitchens. I love yeah. So it's the 50s for the houses and the 40s for the furniture.
You had mentioned in 23, after coming out the other side of breast cancer, focusing on yourself just a little bit more, and you're bringing back into your life that which you loved.
Yeah.
What was that? What was the first thing you did for yourself in regards to the dollhouses, and were things in storage? Did you?
I have a couple of full scale, I should say 112 scale dollhouses. One we built for my daughter. It was actually a wedding gift to me from my husband. It was a kit that I picked out on our honeymoon, and it was one of the most romantic things ever. I still kind of get teary when I think about it because it was so sweet. But we put that together, and it became my daughter's dollhouse. And then I have another one that I ended up getting much, much later in my teens. So it's a larger dollhouse. It was also a gift from a family friend. And that one is in the basement, and it has not been restored, and shame on me. These are the ones that resonated. These, the metal, the smaller. I love the plastic furniture, the vibrant colors, and so when I got back into it, it was really that moment at the the antique store. And I saw the dollhouse, and I can't get that for myself. My kids are, almost adults. My daughter was actually 18 at the time. My son was in his late teens, and I don't even I'm not going to have grandchildren to pass it down to for a long time. So I talked myself out of it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I thought, it's just one little house with some furniture. What harm is that going to do? And so I allowed myself to get the house, and it was kind of hard. I felt weird at first because I hadn't really done anything 100% just for me in a long time. A lot of as spouses, as friends, as sisters, as wives, I already said that, as mothers, we are always doing things, even when we think we're doing kind of something for ourselves. A lot of times it's in support of somebody else, or for, I make gifts. I love making gifts. But I rarely keep the things I make. I give them away. It's the joy of making them, that allows me to keep creating things. And then I lost track of what we were talking about.
I know. You were just saying, I would love that you from as women, we're not just, wow, that's it. Right? Yeah. I mean, we have many roles to play in this life. Yeah. And even taking small little moments for yourself, there's still conditional effects, right? It's time. Like I'm 15 minutes scratch at the door. Yeah. It wasn't 1 year open.
Always.
Right? And so, so
this really was 100% for me. And I'm sure my family was kind of rolling their eyes for a little bit, but my husband has been so supportive because he really saw how happy I was. Like, I was joyful, and I hadn't really felt that kind of joy since I was a little kid. And the more I do it, the more joy I get. I have different style houses, so I can decorate as many, this is how I decorate now. I kind of put my real interior design business on the back burner during the pandemic, and I haven't really gotten back into it. And this is my creative outlet now. And I started taking photographs and sharing those photographs online. And eventually that led to people saying, these photographs are really great, because I really cared about how they looked.
What photographs were you taking?
I was taking photographs of scenes. I'm sorry, I would create scenes with miniature families. So we would get, I'm sorry, I kind of jumped the gun. But I joined some Facebook groups that have dollhouse miniature aficionados in them. And there's one in particular that had challenges for a month. And every day there was a new challenge, and it would just be a little prompt. And I remember one of them was a bubble bath or taking time out or something like that. And so I created a scene in a bubble bath, and there was a lady in bubbles, and I didn't like the lighting in my house. So I took my dollhouse out to my porch area so I could get natural lighting coming in. And the pictures were beautiful. And I realized, lighting is everything.
Yes.
Especially as we get older. Yes. So I started really taking my dollhouses outside a lot to get the lighting right. And I started taking photos, not just inside my dollhouse with my characters, but also on the outside. I started making scenes with trees and grass, and I made sidewalks, and then I was making driveways. Then I was getting cars to put in the driveways, model cars, which you can see a few around here. Then as I started experimenting with, the outside photographs, I started taking them with me on my vacation and experimenting with taking pictures of them in front of real life places. And it was so fun, and the pictures turned out so great that I just started, I created a website, and I have an Instagram account, Maximal Minis, and I have been sharing my joy, basically, in my photos that way. And I've been encouraged by a lot of other content creators to create cards and merchandise. So I just recently started creating cards, and I'm going to start selling them soon on my website, but also in some local gift shops around Glendale and Burbank. So you can look out for those. But I'm really proud of how the photos are received. When I show people the pictures, of course, they're cute and they are charming and they're very nostalgic. But I think they also resonate because they bring back memories for people. And a lot of the things that when I take a photograph of something that I did as a kid. It's a scene that I remember as a kid. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's serious. And when I create those images and I share them, people remember things that happen like that to them. And then it's done in such a cute way. I see on their face that they really genuinely like it, and that means something to them. And that brings me so much more joy. It's like joy on top of joy. So
when you were talking about joy earlier, I actually got emotional about it, because that's why we're here.
yeah.
Life, life is about being joyful, right? And sharing that joy with friends and family and strangers.
Yes.
Because that's just a commonality that we have. And if we can spotlight those types of things between people, there's just so much more in common that we have. And I love the idea of preservation.
Yeah.
You were talking about having a bunch of stuff in storage and started to bring about. And it just breaks my heart because we have stuff in storage too.
Yeah.
And I want, to your point, things that we love should be out on display. If no one treasured, and if no one sees it, that's fine. If we see it, it's being enjoyed. It's a house that's full of love and full of memories and joy. And
yeah. And I used to think it's just so cheesy. I'm collecting dollhouses and I'm playing with dolls, but really, I am sharing a joy in a way, and it does resonate. And I am really happy and proud of that I've found something that I really love that other people love too, and I can share it.
Speaking of other people loving the same things that you do, I had mentioned to you the pictures you posted from San Diego. Miniature, all the cannoli. Talk about connecting with people who are like mind. Yes. But again, you had pictures on your website from the convention of, a chair or a car, miniature, and there was a dime. So that you could understand.
Yes. Because you often see a quarter. And even though it's a quarter, it doesn't really resonate how small it is, because some of the items that I bought were definitely smaller than 1/12 scale. They were tiny carousels that moved, and The artisans at that show were just incredible. It was actually the first miniature show I had been to, and my head exploded. I couldn't believe the workmanship and the dedication to the craft that these people have. So it was really great to see other artists sharing their joy and what they do with other people. The people responding by buying a lot. I spent 3 times more than I had allotted, but I have no regrets because a lot of those people are coming from so far and wide. You know, I'm not going to see them again maybe until maybe a year later. But they're coming from Germany and all different parts of the world. These artisans. So I was happy to support that when they were here.
So many inspirations there. And I know a lot of husband and wife, a lot of couples.
Yeah,
it's a family affair.
I think it almost has to be when it becomes your livelihood. It's not an easy thing actually, and it takes teamwork. Even my husband, like, he doesn't necessarily help me put things together because what I do isn't really building, is literally just finding the pieces and collecting and putting them together. But he helps me with lighting. He helps me with, like, he has an electronic, well, a long time ago, he used to do with small electronics, and he's a programmer now, computer programmer, but he still loves doing those kinds of things. And I appreciate when he can share his knowledge and help me get my houses lit or help me move things. He helps me build things. So he's been a great help. He lets me do things. And I got to go with the living room, completely took it over. And he's fine with it. He still plays bass over there. So we share. He plays bass while I'm doing this. So
a lot of creativity.
Yeah, but a lot of husband and wife, I do believe that they need each other to kind of keep going. So they are artist teams, and it's really great to see them working together like that.
Well, I want to make sure that you stay inspired. Please keep going. I used to take a writing class, and my writing teacher would always say, "Keep going!" ! Because that's really what it's all about.
Thank you. Well, with encouragement, that's how this whole thing started. Was really with encouragement. I thought it was silly. It turns out really people love it.
It matters.
Yeah.
What you're doing matters on so many levels. So I want to make sure people know where can they find you on Instagram?
Maximal Minis is my tag. And then maximalminis.com is my website. And yeah, you can find me either place. And please follow me and send me an email or a line if you'd like, and I would be happy to answer any other questions or meet with you, speak at your events.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and share it. I love sharing, so call me up.
Thank you again.
I'm so glad you're this welcome. You're so welcome. I'm so happy to do it.
We'll continue sharing your story.
Thank you very much.